I am following along with Paul McWhorter's Raspberry Pi Pico W lessons. We're on number 75, and he introduced the infrared remote control. Nice to get into another input sensor for our Pico. So anyhow, um, Paul shows it wired up nice and neat here and everything. And I'm kind of lazy, so I thought of another idea. I went to the data sheet first to find out, make sure, but this sensor only uses about 1.5 milliamps, so it doesn't use much power at all. So my idea is to leave out the wiring altogether. So Paul, we can still use Paul's pin 17 as the data pin, but luckily, right next to it is a ground pin, and that's a middle pin. If we just, my idea is just to move this over and put it into these three pins here. So 17, uh, then ground pin, and then next to it was pin 18. So my idea was just to make pin 18 an output and set it to high at the beginning of the code, and that would supply plenty of the power for the 1.5 milliamps that it needed to run. So, like I say, I'm a little lazy, so didn't have any wiring at all to do on it. I don't know whether you can see it, but it's just set up in there, just stuck in the three pins there. So, anyhow, just a little laziness on my part, but it worked out good. So, don't need to see me this big. So let's get to the code. Paul's homework for this was to uh, end up with a list of keystrokes. So you press a button to start gathering the keystrokes, and then you press another button to finish gathering the keystrokes. And that was the homework. So I first thing I had to do here, let's talk about the code a little bit here. So all the imports, and then I set up the IR pin. But then I was talking about that the power coming from pin 18. So we set that, I called it V pin for voltage pin, and I just set it to on. So that got us power to our sensor so that we can sense that. So I copied Paul's code just to get the raw numbers coming from the sensor library and use them to, I thought a dictionary would be the best way to make use of our make it understandable for what our keystrokes were. So I used the raw numbers coming from the sensor as the key, and then I used a string representation of what I thought the each key represented. So like I said, power mode and mute and all that, and then the numbers down here. So come up with that, and uh, I said, yeah, okay, at least it'll show us something that's more representative of what's on the keypad. So uh, got that working. And for I have the regular try and accept down here and pass so that we close the program and we close the IR. So I set up the IR with a callback function IR key. So that's a small function up here. All we're really doing is when the data comes in, when a keystroke is recorded, that we're just checking to see if that keystroke is in our dictionary, which they all should be. And then we're printing out the value representation. So it'll print out the word or the string for the numbers and everything that we have. Um, if you notice, we get, from the raw stuff, you just get a -1 if you hold it down too long for repeat. And so since I don't have the -1 in my dictionary, it's going to ignore that. It won't pass this function here if you get a repeat. So that won't show up if we hold the key down too long. So I guess we can go ahead and get that running and share that running. So we're ready to run. So I'm going to press the mode button. It says mode, press the power button. It says power, press the mute button, and press a number button. And all working good. So we can go ahead and get out of that and get into where the homework is. So for the homework, he wanted to collect the keystrokes into a list. So instead of using the IR key as the callback, I'm going to make the data entry one as the callback. So I got to uncomment that one and comment this one. So now it's going to call back everything else is going to be the same, except it's going to use this callback. So like I said, Paul just showed us that he made a list, like he started it. I think he used power to start the list, and then I think he used EQ to end the capture of the list. And I decided that the mute button was a better choice for me. They're both on the top, just one on the left and one on the right was a better choice for me. So that's what I did. I did a little bit different than he did. The logic for the code, I decided instead of me explaining individual lines of logic, I just left it here so you guys can pause the video and look at this if you want to. But Paul, for numbers, Paul was just grabbing each digit and putting them as a list item. And I thought that if you wanted to use, like if you wanted 255, if you want to set a value to 255 or something like that, that instead of returning 2 and a 5 and a 5, it'd be better just to return the integer. So I coded it to do it that way. And but any of the other keys, it's just going to add them to the list. So I'm going to leave the explanation there of how all that went about to do that. One thing I do want to say is there's each of these keys this runs every time you press a key. So we needed to maintain information between runs of this. So it would have meant a lot of global variables, or I decided to make a dictionary with my variables in the dictionary as dictionary items. Dictionaries are treated as global, so they're available anytime. So if you see something like this IR capture read, this is the variable that's in this IR capture dictionary. So instead of having a global variable called something else, I just have these. So all these global uh, uh, values are up here, are available globally because it's in a dictionary. So I got a lot of it. You'll see a lot of this IR capture. You just know that that's uh, uh, member of that dictionary, and that's just another way of denoting variables. And basically, it's going to capture any keystroke. Once I press the power button, it's going to start capturing all keystrokes. If it's not a number, it'll capture whatever word as a list item. But if I put a single number or a string of numbers, it's going to capture it as a integer, and it's going to add it to the list as an integer. And so that's basically what it's doing. So let's just go ahead and let it run. Out of it, having it run will explain a lot more than what I can try to explain. So we got it going. So the first thing I want to do is just do a number. So I'm going to do a power. And like I said, 255. And then I'm going to do mute to get it. So it returns a list of just one item. So um, so let's see, so showing how it can capture other stuff. We're going to hit power again to start to capture. I'm going to do mode and EQ. And then I'm going to put in a number 1, 2, 5. And then I'm going to put in another one. I'll do a fast forward and then a rewind. And then I'll put in another number 36. And then I'm going to skip out of it. So now these are what, like I said, what I did. I pushed the mode button, I pushed the EQ button, then I pressed 1, 2, 5. Instead of having those as individual list entries, it brings it out as an integer in there. And then fast forward, rewind, and then the same thing for the 3 and the 6. It turned it into an integer. Anyhow, that's basically the code that I got, and the homework. Like I say, I did a little bit different than Paul did, but I kind of like more useful this way, that you'll have a number that you can use to get that. Anyhow, thanks for watching. Have a great day, everybody.